From Miss Roma. Let's welcome Miss Roma.
All right, thank you. You guys can hear me okay? Yes, okay. All right, so I've not told this testimony before, and I just want you to know it's going to have some dark parts, maybe some sad parts, and but it ends really well, so stay with me through this. So a lot of you don't know, I'm going to start off with the greatest miracle that happened when I got saved on January 7th, 2010. I was debilitated with bipolar disorder. I was incredibly mentally ill. I had been diagnosed in my 20s, and by the time I was in my 30s, I was on 14 medications a day. And every year, the medication went up, and the doctors said what they always say: there's no cure, you'll be like this forever. So when there's no hope, you kind of wish you could die. And my hope was that I would not live the rest of my life hearing voices, being attacked, which I now know were, in the spiritual realm, demonic entities. But when you go to a psychiatrist and you say, well, I've been laying in my bed at night and I'm absolutely awake, and there's a heavy weight laying on top of me and crushing my bones, they do this. They write a prescription. And the more it doesn't go away, the more medications they give you. So I'm in my late 30s now. I am no longer working. All of the medications had side effects, so I am an adult invalid living with my parents. I no longer work. I am literally just staying at home, and I'm up all night, and I sleep all day because I'm afraid to sleep at night, because that's when this thing comes upon me that everyone thinks that I'm making up, right? So I had all these pills on the side of the bed, and I used to hold them and just shake and say, I really only need to take one. I don't need all these bottles. I don't even need to take the whole bottle. And I would say, God, if you really love me, you would give me the courage and the strength to take these. And now I know that the courage and the strength was actually holding my hands back, because God had a great plan for me. So on January 7th, I actually had been coming off some of the medication because I lost my health insurance. And so the doctor said, we can't give you all these meds, but I can give you the antipsychotic for free, because psychiatrists get them for free. They get samples, and you can pay for your anti-anxiety medication called Klonopin, which I took 8 times a day. And the doctor would say to me, as needed. Take as much as you need when you need it. And I said, well, I'm up to 8. And he would say, as needed. And I would say, I also have a psychiatrist that lives on the streets and writes me prescriptions, and you're no different than he is, if you get my meaning, right? So now I'm gonna go back. Where did this come from? When I was 4, a family friend who was a practitioner of black magic was inappropriate with me and violated my childhood boundaries. It was not the first time, but it was the first of other times and other people. Unfortunately, there was a wound in me that was too big for me to handle, and I became very angry as a child, and I also felt I could no longer trust anybody, because nobody protected me from the people that were family friends. However, this particular person was the family, he was the high priest of this religion that is very popular in the Caribbean called Santeria. And what it is a mixture of Roman Catholicism and West African gods. So when you grow up Hispanic, Puerto Rican, and you think it's part of Catholicism, you worship a saint, and you have an altar, and you put cigars on it, and coconuts, and you make offerings to the saints. So what happens with these gods, you have ancient worship, divination, tarot cards, numerology, astrology. You speak to the dead. Your spirit becomes possessed. People actually feel that they are encountering God when they have an encounter with one of the spirits, and they're called orishas. There's drumming, there is animal sacrifice, there are rituals and offerings. You put money at the altar, you put alcohol. And I grew up with this altar at my grandmother's house, and when I was at the same time, about 5 years old, a small doll was given to me, and I was told that I was never ever to let this doll leave my sight, that it was protection, but it was actually a curse. And that doll stayed with me until I was saved, and 2 weeks later, when I took the altars down in my room and put everything in the garbage. So now I'm full of anger, and I have no one to express it to because I'm too young to even explain it. And I'm also very extroverted, and my parents are very introverted. So I start to feel like nobody understands me. I like to talk, sing, and dance, and my parents really just, you know, they're normal parents. They just don't understand my exuberance. And my anger starts to produce impulsivity. So Proverbs 14:29 says, "He who is impulsive exalts folly." I became a fool. By middle school, I was smoking cigarettes because my mom smoked. I stole her cigarettes. And by the first year of high school, I was smoking marijuana, snorting cocaine, and taking acid. I'm sorry to tell you that, but it's true. And by my senior year of high school, I always had good grades. That's why good grades don't kind of throw me off when people have good grades, because I kept the good grades to keep my parents off my back. And by high school, I was fully depressed. I had I'd opened so many doors with drugs and alcohol that there was nothing covering up the pain that I could not express to anybody. I went off to college and got worse. And by the time I graduated, I was completely out of my mind. I was hearing voices that were constantly telling me to do things like jump in front of a car. I worked in Manhattan, and the train would come on the subway, and I would hear voices saying, there's something wrong with you, jump. Just get it over with, you'll be better off, and so will everybody else. So this particular scripture, I hope you remember this. 1 Samuel 15:23 says, "For rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft." And my rebellion was as the sin of witchcraft. After my 20s, I became a professional tarot reader. I went to a school in New York that gave me certification to become a professional certified astrologer. I went to the Tarot School of New York in Queens with two very important teachers who are still around. And at every level, the devil laid crumbs. And I just got worse and worse. And I was in AA. I didn't finish that. Praise God, I don't need to, because the Lord encountered me. So now I'm going to tell you how I got saved. So I was 38 years old, and I was sitting at Barnes & Noble. I had been weaned. I had not been weaned. I had had my medication cut down because I lost my insurance. And my parents told me to go get my master's. They said, "You're smart, you love reading and writing, become a teacher." They always said it. I never listened. And they said, "We don't care how long it takes, just go, we'll pay for it." So I took my time to get my master's, and I'm about to complete it. I'm still a mess, and 4 college students, about 20 years old, are doing Bible study in Barnes & Noble, and I hear them, and everything inside of me says I need to tell them that they're wrong. And I interrupt them and say, "Jesus never did anything for me." I told them I was suffering. I hadn't slept in 3 months. I had narcolepsy. I couldn't drive my car because all the medication put halos around lights. So I had a brand new car I couldn't drive. I couldn't even take myself to school. And I had no life. And I was angry, miserable, and upset. And nothing that I did for other people when they came and I read cards and I gave crystals and I did all this stuff, it may have helped, well, it never helped them, it cursed them, but it never helped, and it made me feel worse. So these kids, they're kids, I'm 38, they're 20, tell me the gospel. And I tell them, well, I worship Krishna and Buddha, and I do chanting on Fridays in Sanskrit. I do all these things. So I think all gods lead to one path. And they said, no, there's only one who's the way, the truth, and the life, and his name is Jesus. I said, well, I don't think I ever focused on Jesus. I focused on saints. So 4 hours later, because they talked to me for 4 hours, Barnes & Noble closed at 11, we were there till 9. They brought me up to the section where there were Bibles, and they kind of wore me down with the one thing I didn't have, joy and peace. And so I got a Bible. I went home that night. They asked if they could pray for me. I said no. I was still a little weirded out. But when I got home that night, I did what this psalm says. Let me find it for you, so I want to make sure I get it right. No, give me a second, sorry. Psalm 18:6. In my distress, I called upon the Lord and cried out to my God. He heard my voice from his temple, and my cry came before him, even to his ears. I went into my room and I cried like I had never cried before, which is why you will always hear me tell you, if you have big things in your life and you are not crying while you're praying, you are missing something important. It is going to wash you. I cried and I said, where were you? Where are you? Where were you when I was 4 and 5 and 6 and 8 and 12 and 13 and 8? And I just kept going. I had a Job experience. And then something miraculous happened. I had not slept in 6 to 8 weeks. I fell asleep at 3 a.m. When I woke up, it was January 7th. It was January 8th, a Friday. And I woke up like this. And I felt someone had done spiritual CPR on me. And when I exhaled, for the first time in my life, the voices stopped. And there was a spirit of joy that I had never, ever had, because my joy was stolen when I was 4. I got out of bed. I ran down the stairs. I said, Jesus is real. I'm healed. I've been healed. And my parents said, call the doctor. She's on something different. She needs more medication. And I just want you to know, I am healed and I have never turned back. I fired the psychiatrist after 2 years because I had to wean off of the medication because it was so strong. I could not just stop. My body was addicted and used to it. So I would never tell anybody to stop taking medication. So for 2 years, I was healed. I went to church on Friday that night. I have never stopped going. The spirit of joy does not leave me, whether you take something from me. Most of you know I had a diagnosis of breast cancer while I was pregnant, and the spirit of joy did not leave me because I knew that my God would take care of me. And so my last message to you is why I am so passionate about your age group is because I could have died in high school multiple times. And there were 2 Christians in my high school out of 900 graduating seniors. One of them is still my best friend and still a Christian, but they did not tell me about Jesus. And I almost died in college, and no Christians told me about Jesus. And in my 20s, no Christians told me about Jesus. So I keep tracts in my car. I give them to gas attendants and waitresses. I leave them in bathrooms and supermarkets in 6 packs of beer. Somebody needs to know, and if I can't tell them, let them hear the gospel through a track. So please, you're so important to me because I lost a friend in middle school who did not graduate high school. And my 8th grade teacher said, look around you, not all of you will be here at your senior graduation. And I didn't believe him, but we had a large class, right? And Greg Pickman did not make it. And I don't know that anybody told him about Jesus. So I am healed. I've not gone back to the doctor after 2 years. I was able to get off my medication. And I have a spirit of joy no matter what. I always tell you guys, today is a good day to have a great day because joy is a choice when you know Jesus. So God bless you. I hope that speaks to you. And I pray that somebody heard something here today that will touch somebody else's life. Thank you.
Let's hear it again for Mrs. Roman.